Hello and welcome to Precon Decon, the video series where I deconstruct the pre-constructed decks of Magic the Gathering's history. In this video we're going to keep looking at the decks from Conflux, and we're going to move on to look at Esper Air Assault, which is the white-blue-black deck from Conflux and represents Esper, as you might guess from the name of the deck. So let's just dive into it. So the theme of the deck is, so once again, it's Esper, which means artifacts and artifact synergies. But really, the overall theme is just creatures with flying, because white, blue, black is the best combination to kind of do that strategy. So it's quite a straightforward theme. Just play a bunch of creatures that have flying and attack in the air, and that's fine. And have a few artifact synergies to help them out. So yeah, pretty straightforward. So one of the rares in the deck and the foil face is Magister Sphinx. So 4 cards, 1 white, 1 blue, 1 black for a 5/5 flyer. When it comes into play, target's life total becomes 10. So this thing, back in the day, there was the Jewels of the Planeswalkers game on like Xbox and PS3 and stuff. This card always always seemed to screw me over when playing it. Like, 'cause there was the arch enemy mode, and so if you selected the artifact deck to play against, they'd always play this and drop you down from 40 straight down to 10. I think it has been banned at some point in maybe like Commander, I think, just because that ability to set the life total is pretty strong. Obviously, because if someone's like managed to gain a low life or just starts on high life, you can just immediately bring them down to 10. It works for you as well. So if you're at a low life total, this can bring you back up to 10. So it's actually a fun ability. That it can work either way. I think it's pretty interesting. But yeah, it's just a big 5/5 flyer. But yeah, I think Magister Sphinx is pretty cool. A single Darklit Gargoyle, 1 card and a white for a 1/2 flyer, so Stormcrow stats. You can pay a black to give it +2/-1 till end of turn, so it can swing for being a 3/1. That's okay. If you can find a way to boost its toughness, then obviously you can pour more mana into that ability, make it even bigger. But yeah, I think this is again a perfectly fine card to have as a common. A single Esper Cormorants. This is just very straightforward. It's just 2/1, 1 white, 1 blue, just a 3/3 flyer. It's just fine. I suppose technically worse than classic, was it Phantom Monster, which was just 3 and a blue for a 3/3 flyer. This requires an extra color mana, and it's an artifact which has its upsides and downsides. But I think it's still a fine card. Again, at common, I think it's absolutely fine, and it's doing what the deck wants to do, which is have a reasonably sized body in the air. We have 2 Parasitic Strix, so 2 and a blue for a 2/2 flyer. When it comes into play, if you control a black permanent, target player loses 2 life and you gain 2 life. So, this is like Windrake stats, just being 3 mana for a 2/2 flyer with some upside. You don't have that many black permanents in the deck, I don't think. So you can't always guarantee this ability is going to go off, but when it does, it's going to feel, I think, you're getting a good deal for 3 mana to get a 2/2 fly and the 2-point life swing as well. Yeah, I think it's all right. Parasitic Strix. A single Fairy Mechanist, so 3 and a blue for a 2/2 flyer. When it comes to play, look at the top 3 cards of your library. You can reveal an artifact card from among them, put it into your hand, put the rest on the bottom of your library in any order. Yep, this is fine. Like I say, pretty much every card in the deck is either like an artifact or a land. So you've got a pretty good chance of getting an artifact from this. And there's always the potential, obviously, that out of those 3 cards, the 2 that you don't pick are good ones, and then they just get buried at the bottom of your library. But that's the risk we take. It's a fairly decent effect to have just on a 2/2 flyer as well, and quite cheap as well, I think. So a single Esper Zoa who combos very nicely with Parasitic Strix and Fairy Mechanist. So Esper Zoa, 2 and a blue for a 4/3 flyer, which is really well costed, but it does come with sort of a bit of a drawback. At the beginning of your upkeep, you have to return an artifact you control to owner's hand. So you do have some, with Parasitic Strix and the Fairy Mechanist, you have ways of, you can just keep returning these to your hand and keep playing them and get their effects. Or you can just return, the cheaper stuff like, the Darklit Gargoyle, maybe. You've got some other cheap artifacts in here, and you can just keep swinging with a big 4/3 robot jellyfish. What's not to love about that? So yeah, I think it's okay, and it does enable shenanigans, which I like. Two Court Homunculus, so nice and cheap. So this is actually another good thing to return with the Esper Zoa. So 1 white for a 1/1 gets +1/+1 as long as you control another artifact. So potential, 1 mana for a 2/2. That condition is not hard to meet. So yeah, I think it's just pretty efficient little creature. Yeah, just just a 2/2 for 1 mana potentially. Yeah, I think it's again just fine. A single salvage slasher, so 1 and a black for a 1/1 gets +1/+0 for every artifact card in your graveyard. So you don't really have a theme of getting artifacts into your graveyard. It's not kind of like you're not like there's not a theme of sacrificing artifacts. That's not really like a thing that Esper cards really did. And you're not like trying to mill cards into your graveyard either. So I don't think this is great because it still needs at least one artifact to be like bare minimum, which is like a 2/1 for 2. The fact its toughness doesn't go up, so it doesn't even matter if you have like 5 artifacts. It's still very fragile and easy to deal with. It can punch up then, I suppose, but this requires, I think, like too much setup to get it to work. So I think if it had better base stats, like if it was just 2/1 on its own, or maybe if like it had if it was a 2/1 maybe for 2 and it had the activated ability to get +1/+0 for every artifact in the graveyard or something maybe. But yeah, not great in my opinion. And a single Windwright Mage, so we've seen this already in the other Esper deck. So 1 white, 1 blue, 1 black for a 2/2 with lifelink, and it has flying as long as another artifact card is in your graveyard. So yeah, exactly what I just said. You don't have really a dedicated way of getting artifacts get into your graveyard other than them just dying in combat like your artifact creatures. Like I said in the last one, I apparently do have like a weird hang up about this card just because the condition is really weird. I wish it was kind of more like Court Homunculus where like it got the bonus just for controlling another artifact. Because it's 3 different colors of mana. It's quite a few hoops to jump through just to get a 2/2 lifelink. Obviously the flying makes it a bit better, but I say it's yeah. I don't know why I have such a weird hang up about this card. Anyway. So we have a single Scornful Ether Lich, yeah. So 3 and a blue for a 2/4. Pay 1 white, 1 black. Gets Fear and Vigilance until turn 10, so it becomes not flying, but it gets evasion in a different way. Having Vigilance is good as well because then it can just swing and then be able to block next turn, which is good because it's got a fairly chunky toughness, so it makes a good blocker. Yeah, I think this is perfectly fine. A single Sludge Strider, so 1 colours, 1 white, 1 blue, 1 black for a 3/3. Whenever another artifact comes into play under your control, or another artifact you control leaves play, you can pay 1. If you do, target player loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. So this obviously goes well with the Esper Zoa, and your stuff like Parasitic Strix or what was the one? The Fairy Mechanist, so you can just like keep replaying them, and then as they're coming to play and they're leaving play with the Esper Zoa, you can be using Sludge Strider ability to like slowly drain someone. It's maybe like a little bit pricey because again it's like 3 different colors of mana, and it is just a 3/3 with like no other abilities or anything. But I feel like this ability is okay. It's just you got to leave the mana open to it. If it just did it automatically, that'd be great. But then I think it'd be rare, honestly. But yeah, I think this is a fine card as well. Single Tide Hollow Sculler, so 1 white, 1 black for a 2/2. When it comes to play, target opponent reveals their hand and you choose a non-land card from it and it gets exiled, and when Tide Hollow Sculler leaves play, return the exiled card back to its hand. So you just O-rings something from someone's hand. It's a pretty cool effect, and again goes really nice with Esper Zoa. You could play this early, look at their hand, exile something that's going to help them out early game. And then, as the game goes on, and by some miracle this doesn't die, you could then use Esper Zoa to just like keep retaining this and keep playing it again, and potentially like keep seeing their hand and seeing the new stuff they draw and locking out their best card potentially every turn. Not saying that it would necessarily work because he's only a 2/2, but it would be annoying enough to like for your opponent to like divert attention to stop that. So we have a few more like evasive creatures here. So we have 2 Vidalcan Outlanders, 1 white, 1 blue, just for a 2/2 with pro red. Yep, fine, very straightforward. Yep. A single Vectis Agents, so 3, a blue and a black for a 4/3. You can pay a blue and a black to give it -2, -0 to end turn, but to make it unblockable. So I guess this is okay. Because 5 mana for a 4/3 is a little undercut. It is at common though, I suppose, and it is in blue-black, which are not great creature colors. The fact this has the ability to make itself unblockable, I guess, is fine. Taking the power hit though to do that is pretty rough. I think I would rather just the ability was a bit more expensive, and they just kept kept their 4 power, so then they could just swing and do like a really big hit. But as is, I think they're okay. Though honestly, I think you would just bypass this and just use maybe like a cheaper creature that maybe has lower power but is always unblockable, like Phantom Warrior or something. But I say. So the other rare in the deck is Inkwell Leviathan. So a whopping 9 mana, 7 and 2 blue, for a 7/11 Island Walk, Trample and Shroud. So obviously super expensive, but incredibly hard to deal with because like 11 toughness is huge. It's got Shroud, so you can't even target it with burn. It's got Island Walk, so if you're playing against someone with islands, and if you're playing against another, maybe if you're playing these decks, say against each other, if you're against the Esper, Grixis, or Bant decks, this is obviously huge. And it has Trample just in case it's not unblockable from Island Walk. It can just stomp over things. Big stompy creature. But 9 mana is obviously ridiculous. Like by the time you've hit 9 mana, the game sort of should be over anyway. But this is an okay way to close it out if it hasn't, I suppose. So we have a single Executioner's Capsule, 1 black, 1 black, one colors, 1 black, and sacrifice it. Destroy a non-black creature. So like I said in the last Esper video, this is actually kind of limiting just because Alara is a multicolored block. So a lot of multicolored creatures. So this might be kind of limited in targets. Because Esper, Jund, and Grixis all have black creatures in them. So you might be a bit limited for targets on this, but it's fairly cheap, I suppose, so it's okay. Single Rod of Ruin from 10th edition. It's just expensive, isn't it? It's just 4 mana, and then 3 in tap just to do 1 damage to a creature or player. Like that, that ability is like it can be useful, but like it's just so expensive. Whatever. It's okay. But this is a card you'd replace straight away, I think. Same with Dehydration. So 3 in a blue. Enchanted creature, and it doesn't untap during controls untap step. So I don't think you have a way of tapping anything down, and it doesn't stop the creature. It doesn't stop creatures with vigilance necessarily. Like it's worse than pacifism, and it's really expensive. And I think by this point we have seen cards like this that already like tap the creature down as part of like casting it. So this was I always thought a weird reprint to have in 10th edition anyway, but it is what it is. Again, this is another one I think you would try and cut as soon as possible. Single Remove Soul just to counter a creature spell. Yep, fine. And then 2 Traumatic Visions. So super expensive counterspell, 3 and 2 blue, to counter target spell. So you're paying like 2 more than cancel, just for the chance of basic land cycling. So basic land cycling, 1 cost 1 blue. Discard this card, search your library for a basic land card, reveal it, put it into your hand, then shuffle. So just I suppose giving it the option of basic land cycling just tacks on an extra 2 mana to it, I suppose. Really, really expensive. I'm not saying it's not useful because anything that helps you kind of fix your lands in a triple color deck is okay. But I don't know why it had to be so expensive for like a hard counter. This could have been fine at 2 and 2 blue, I think. But anyway. And then 2 Arcane Sanctums, the Esper Triland, 2 Terramorphic Expanses, like I said in the Bant video last time, like we've apparently just given up on the panoramas, apparently. And then Mana Base, 7/3/3 split, like we see a lot in these Alara decks. So what could have been? So I think generally the card selection is okay. I say mostly it's the 10th edition cards in here, which I don't think really go too well. I guess there's the Salvage Slasher as well, which is not great. On the whole, I think the card selection is okay, but that doesn't mean there's not room for improvement. So Counter Squall, I think would have been okay. Maybe instead of Traumatic Visions. So 1 blue, 1 black, you counter a non-creature spell, and its control loses 2 life. So just a really good, mean, cheap counter spell, I think. Cumberstone, I think, could have worked. 3 in a blue gives creatures your opponent's control -1, -0. So just like weaken them down. So I think that could have been okay. View from above, 1 in the blue, instant to give a creature you control flying. If you control a white permanent, you get view from above back to hand. This could have been okay. Like you've got a few non-flying creatures in here. This could have helped, I guess, just to help give them a bit more evasion, I suppose. Telemin Performance. I thought this could have been like maybe an alternate rare instead of maybe the Inkwell Leviathan, because that thing is really expensive, and like I say, you kind of want the game to be over by that point. So 3 and 2 blue. An opponent reveals cards from the top of their library until they reveal a creature card. You put all non-creature cards revealed that way into their graveyard, and you get the creature card into play under your control. So it is like a big gamble to take because you don't know what creature you're going to get. But there's the potential that you just mill someone for a few cards and then get a creature, I guess. It's so random though. So it is kind of janky, I suppose. But I don't know. It could have been an alternative. Another alternative rare. Sphinx Summoner, so 3/1 blue, 1 black, just for a 3/3 flyer. When it comes to play, you search your library for an artifact creature card, put it into hand, and then shuffle. So really, like just simple, straightforward effect. And again, like a decently sized sort of flyer. This is a good one. Again, you could have bounced with Esper to keep getting the effect, I suppose. Yeah, that could have been an alternate rare. But what I really would have liked, Master Transmuter. So I'm just going to say, this is like one of my favorite arts in all of Magic. I really, really like this art. It's so good. Anyway, so 3 in a blue for a 1/2. Not great stats, but 1 blue tap, return an artifact you control to owner's hand. You can put an artifact card from your hand into play. So your little Court Homunculus, return that to hand, and then drop Inkwell Leviathan or Magister Sphinx or any other like really expensive artifact. What you can also do if you just want to get enter the battlefield effects anyway, you can put the same artifact you returned back into play. So you could return, say, Parasitic Strix, goes back into hand, and then you just put the artifact straight, and then you put it straight back into play because you can do that with the ability. So that would have been like a really fun rare, I think. And I say this art is just so good. I really like this art. So in summary, I think it's okay. It's got a very straightforward strategy, which is just creatures in the air, which is fine. We've sort of seen that strategy a lot, mostly in like the blue core set starter decks, but it works here as well. And you got the artifact sub theme as its Esper. I think it's okay. I think it would have been quite straightforward to pick up and play, honestly. I think it's all right. What are your thoughts on the deck after seeing it? Do you have any opinions or stories about this deck that you'd like to share? If you do, put them below in a comment. Always like reading those. But I'll be back next time to get another Conflux intro pack. But until then, thanks for watching and listening. Have a great day.